What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Reality Kingdom, where we put the real and trill in the mill in
Ooh,
reality.
In reality, period.
Period. I'm your host, Pharaoh. We're back again, back to back, Maybach.
Stack the M's. Told my man Slim Shady, back the M.
I'm trying to make these niggas rap again. Tell them. I'm your host, Pharaoh. We're joined by our wonderful host, Lee. Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're here. Big Brother is still a month away.
Doesn't feel like it.
But hey, you know, one day at a time.
One day at a motherfucking time. One day.
When the world was one.
Anyways, y'all, if you don't see the title, I'm gonna tell you the title, girl. We are going to be getting into the women strategists. Big Brother. Now, listen, y'all. If you don't know, here at the Reality Kingdom, we are here to represent the underrepresented. So we're gonna be talking about women today. Period.
Will you get a men video? We don't like men. Eat it up.
Will you get a men video? Stay tuned. Good luck. Maybe comment if you need it. I don't know.
I mean, but here's the thing. The reason why I'm happy about doing a women video is because the women strategists, they just do not get talked about a lot. We hear about the men all the goddamn time. We know that some of the names are going to be on the list. Derek, Dr. Will, Dan. We know. Yeah. We get it. Yes. Okay. We get it.
Let's talk about the girls.
Let's talk about the girls. And
I
think what I find really interesting too, like just hopping into it, like before we get into the ranking, like what sucks because with women strategists and a few of these women on this list, I mean, out of the women on this list, there's only 3 who won, and this is a top 10 list. You know what I mean? And their wins aren't regarded as highly as a lot of their male counterparts, and I just don't understand why that's the case. Like, I just don't understand why is it so hard for women to get that same respect as a Dr. Will or Dan or Derek? Because I feel like, an example, Vanessa, who may or may not be on the list, we don't know. I don't think that she gets put up in the conversation with a Dr. Will and Dan as much. When people are discussing the greats,
people claim she didn't.
They only mention the men.
They claim she didn't win. That's why. But when women play like Vanessa, the women who did win, they did play a slightly less bold strategic game, and I think it's because when women play super strategically or dominantly, they end up not winning. It's easier to see women as more threatening than it is to see, and that goes for a lot of different underrepresented categories, underrepresented archetypes. They're easily seen as more threatening because they're just different. It's something different. We don't see women do this, so we're scared. But when a man does it, no one bats an eye. They all walk Cody to the end of the game. No,
a lot of people also just feel comfortable listening, honestly, to a man. Yep. I mean, you know, it's that security factor that everyone, us being in a heteronormative society, is just used to. You know, it's very easier for a man to take control, and when a woman does it, a lot of people are just reactive to it in polarizing ways. And I feel like we see it with some of the great strategies that we're going to get into. But it's just like, I mean, that's just sad because some of my fave players are the female strategists, and they always get cut short. They almost always does. It just sucks. It just sucks as well.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of the women who could have been big strategists, they don't get the opportunity to be sometimes. So this list, when you see the list, it's like not that's it, but it's kind of like that's it. In a way, because there's just not many, especially compared to the men, I feel. And it's because they either get clipped really early, people get really scared of them, they don't get respect in the game, therefore they can't take the control the man would have. So it's a lot of discourse to get into. But girl, we can just hop into it, right?
Go on.
Let's hop into it or whatever, y'all. So it's going to be a top 10.
It's going to be a top 10. If your faves aren't here, I'm sorry.
I mean, they're not that girl. They're not those girls. Okay. I feel like if you guys want to put y'all top 10 list in the comments, go ahead and do that.
Someone who you think should have been on here, someone you think definitely should not have been on here. I think all of the names we do have, I mean, they eat. They're mothers. I mean, this is a list of mothers. It is.
It's giving mothers to me, too. I don't see how y'all would ever have a complaint. But if y'all do, hold on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, he disappearing.
Laptop dying and shit. The fuck?
But I think also connected to what you're saying, too, that's why, like, the women alliance, like the thought of a women alliance being there is always so threatening. Like once there's a rumor of a women's alliance, all the women gotta go. All the women are terrified and be broken up, but it's like women alliances are never successful. So it's like, how is the thought of a women alliance that scary when no one has never dominated in that way? But I think it's just a sense of, honestly, in general, a marginalized group coming together. In this sense, it would be women.
Child, let's get into it, y'all. Now, this first wonderful woman, let me put her on the screen. Boom. This is number 10.
Nakomis! Miss Deadman. You know, doing my research on Nakomis, I feel really bad because it just feels like a lot of her Big Brother legacy is connected to Michael being her half brother. Yeah. And it's just like, no, I kept trying to find like just details on her, and like they just kept bringing up Michael. Like, we get it, because for the girls who don't know, Big Brother was playing Maury on BB5
Literally.
and was putting the siblings in the house together. They were camp. They went from exes to brothers, bitch. They had twins, bitch.
That ain't. But yeah, so Nakomis, her legacy was a little bit tied to that cowboy man. Fun fact, he is racist. I will continue to say it. A lot of people don't know
what the street's saying?
That's what Marvin said on the finale.
Oh, well, it's true.
So if you want to call him the streets, I don't know. But Marvin definitely clocked that nigga. That nigga is racist as fuck. He's not a nigga either. But done with him. Nakomis, mother, in a way. So this is my thoughts, because for me, when I was making the top 10 list, I was going through a lot of the women, and I was like, I think Nakomis will make the list. And in a way, after researching her game, thinking about exactly what she did, I'm kind of, and it's not even to be mean or to be upset about her, but I'm kind of underwhelmed by the amount of women who have the chance to be strategic. So I'm glad that she did have the chance, and I'm glad that she was able to make the list, because not many women can get the chance. And if you notice, a lot of these women were in women alliances, or alliances with a lot of women in it, starting with Nicole. So in her season in Big Brother 5, her and Diane were two of the main people who created
iconic duo.
No, they ate that up. Who created the majority alliance? Initially, Nakomis was like a little bit of an outcast, just because look at her, you know, she's just different, and she knows she's different. But
she played into that. Yeah, I like that about her, because like she knew that she was going to be perceived a certain way, and she mentioned it in the diary room, like, I'm this goth kid. I want people to underestimate me, and it was working those earlier weeks. Like, she was nominated as a pawn, which, you know, a pawn, but she had no fear of going home. Like, the guys who were running the game at this point, they trusted her and felt like she was someone that they could use. Whole time, she didn't like any of them and was plotting on their downfall with her homegirl, Diane.
Yeah, it was very interesting to watch that first part, because that's where I feel like Nakomis's game was really, when it gets to the strategy of it all, that's where it was really interesting, because I remember her having diary rooms about intending to snow the four horsemen, make them think they can use her. And that's what she did. And she did it really good. And while doing that, she was also able to create a connection with Diane, who in real life, it just doesn't seem like those are two people who would get together. But Nakomis was able to strategically kind of set herself up with these people, because socially, she wasn't necessarily the best at doing that. So she was strategically setting herself up with Diane and this girls' alliance that they ended up forming. And I feel like that was like the main impressive thing about her game was the setup. At the beginning, she was at first, she was targeted, she was a pawn, and then she was able to set herself up so well by snowing them in and then getting in the core of this girls' alliance. And it took her very deep in the game. We saw that whenever Nakomis won her HOH, she was able to execute the backdoor plan that Marvin created.
It was originally called the Six Finger Plan. And the girls love to coin Nakomis with it, but the real tea is Marvin is the first originator. I could not think of the word. Originator of the backdoor plan. Like, I went through multiple Reddit threads, multiple Twitter threads, like, he was having the conversations about this six-finger plan in conversations before, because at this time in Big Brother 5, for the girls who don't know, they can choose who plays in veto. So as the HOH holder and the players playing, you know, you're able to decide who everyone that's playing, the replacement nominee. Like, you had so much control back then. So they were able to, during her HOH, you know, take out the target. And was it Jace at the time? Yeah. Essentially the leader of the other side because of this plan. And honestly, I think the reason why she's coined with it, because she was the HOH, and also I think you get a lot of credit for, you know, going through with the plan, enacting the plan. Like, I feel like a recent random comparison would be, you know, Marianne in Survivor. Remember when she used that idol and Mike and Jonathan were like, no, we came up with the plan. like, you can't take credit for this, but she did the work. It was her alliances, like going back to Nakomis, it was her allegiances, it was her HOH, it was her power that successfully executed the plan. If Marvin had HOH, who knows if he could have executed it, because Marvin was a lone wolf in the game. So, you know, you would need the social game, which she was able to form with a lot of the people around her.
With her alliance, that's true, and I agree. And it was still impressive because, like you said, she was the one who had the ability to do it, and she did it. She could have just won the HOH and not did it. She didn't have to do it. So for her to recognize that it's a powerful thing and then actually execute it, it's very good. It was the first backdoor ever.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I think also it just comes down to the level of gameplay where these earlier seasons were at. A lot of the older players who's going to be in this list, I think in any Big Brother list, I mean, you have to look at it differently from the new age gamers, because you have people in BB23 coming in seeing 22 versions of the game. These people were in BB5. It's a much slower game. You're understanding it. What's impressive about these players is that so early in the game, you have these origin building blocks, you know, and I think BB5, as compared to like the other seasons, was strategically, like, just honestly a slower season for earlier on. So I don't think that she even necessarily needed to be that competitive, but she did good with what she did, because, you know, I mean, compared to some of the other women on this list, it's like they're more, I think, trailblazers. I think Nakomis, even though she did help create the backdoor plan, I don't think there's not like a staple more than that, because even that, you know, was help with Marvin. So
exactly. After this, do you have anything else you want to say about Nakomis?
No, not really. I think this next person will give more leeway for Nakomis because they were so interconnected.
Okay, y'all. Let me tell y'all the next one. Number 9. You guessed it, probably.
Diane. I absolutely love Diane in BB5. Like, I think Diane is really just one of the, like, original mothers, like, just genuinely. I mean, the type of power and control that she wielded that season, and like one of the first women we were able to see do that, like, kind of control a group of people as a cult leader, like some would say. It was really impressive to watch.
It was. I feel like the main thing about Diane was that alliance, because Nakomis helped, but she was the one who pushed it into place. And Diane was like, I want a girls' alliance. The girls need to stick together.
Yes.
They're all together. Let's get together. Diane was the one who had the relationship with Will. She brought Will into it so that they can have the majority amount of the numbers. And then she created literally the majority alliance. So her creating the majority alliance and being at the head of the majority alliance, she was the first woman, I believe, to have done this within those first 4 seasons. Because BB2, there wasn't a woman lead. Oh, Nicole was, but that wasn't really an alliance that she was leading because they hated her in it. BB3, it didn't happen. BB4, it didn't happen. This was the first time that when it came to the big alliance in the house, it was a woman who created it and a woman who was like leading it. That's very impressive in its own. Honestly, that's enough.
And I think really early on, it was just impressive to see how she maneuvered the game socially, because one of her early relationships was with Drew, and that relationship with Drew essentially helped decimate the entire other side, which kept her side in control, which is just really, really nice, because she was able to use that to bring him in, and it took her further into the game.
Yes, that like positioning. Diane positioned herself in the middle of her alliance and in the middle of the house itself, because she was in between the boys and the girls through Drew, and she was in the center of her alliance through literally creating it. So bringing in all these people, they have the best relationship with Diane. So she really centered herself well all overall, and that's how it led to the final 5 situation, where it was 2 of the girls and then 2 of the guys, and Diane was in the middle. And when she went with, what I like about Diane is when she did go with the Drew and decide to go with him, she did it in the most strategic way possible. She was like, Karen's going to get these votes. Karen's going to win. So she like literally snowed the girls into thinking she was still with them and went with the Drew. Did she lose? Yes. But
and that's what sucks.
Strategy of it all. The strategy behind her flipping, it was to the point where she was flipping for like the 2 weeks ahead, but Nakomis and Karen didn't know until it was too late. And now they're gone. So it's like strategically, those moments were still smart, and she was still intelligent about how she approached it. It's just at the end of the day, Diane was Drew was not fucking with Diane the way she thought he was fucking.
Because he was, playing for
but really, she was fucking with him, and he was
playing with the other.
He was playing the game.
He was one of those.
He was playing the game.
I mean,
but,
it's literally
she got final 3.
Yeah, and it's the original, Netta and John. It's that moment of they were literally a whole entire show match, and he cuts that girl. I mean, opening the doors just for more strategy that can be used later on in the season. Bringing someone to the end and cutting them. When it's the utmost time. I mean, we've seen that in final 3s. Several final 3s.
All the time.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it definitely does suck, but. Sometimes you got to take that chance, and if it just doesn't work out for you, it does not work out. And that's kind of what happened in this situation. But I think also what hurts both of these women's legacy is their time in All-Stars.
Yeah.
Because both of them went very early in All-Stars. And that, I think, it made people kind of forget a little bit. Because after that, they weren't really brought up more. And like I said, when it comes to, like, a staple, like, of course, Nakomis is always going to be remembered for helping the Six-Finger Plan, but by BB7 and onward, I mean, we were getting so many different icons and legends, and once the game starts evolving more, sometimes some players, their contributions, they aren't remembered as much, and I think Diane and Nakomis kind of fell into that.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the thing on my rewatch of All-Stars, I feel like with Diane, people look at her placement, which was like 10th, and they forget, or 11th, and they forget like what she was actually doing in the game. Because on a rewatch, Diane was almost stayed the week she went home. People did not want her to go home. They were very upset, and she really only went home because Janelle would not lose a comp. And I feel like when it came to the strategy of it all, Diane did have an alliance. She had her secret alliance with Jace, and she had a group of people who were working with her against season 6 with Marcellus and Erica and Danielle. So it's like she did have a group of people behind her rocking with her. And I feel like people just forget. They kind of just think, oh, Diane and the comments, they didn't do shit. They went home. And it's like, that's not what happened with Diane, at least. And I feel like that shows that she can come back and she can get in a group and she can still be well liked enough to where people didn't even want her to go. So I feel like people need to remember that she was still doing something. Yeah. It was just the luck of the
and also like I mean BB7 All-Stars versus a BB22 All-Stars, like that was All-Stars.
Period. Like she was there with
mothers and mothers. Somebody had to go first.
Child.
And second and third and fourth.
Speaking of All-Stars,
child. Speaking of somebody had to go first.
Miss Alison.
Like
did she flop on All-Stars? She did.
Now, original bad bitch. I mean, original.
You want to talk about original bad bitch?
Icon. It was Miss Alison Irwin, baby. It was Miss Alison Irwin, baby. I mean,
there's no competitors.
There's no competitors. Don't even advocate. This is the way that I sing. I love Alison so much. I like Alison so much because, especially this season, because she was very unapologetic with her gameplay. Like, she would be very vocal about how she's using certain people with her persuasion, her sex appeal. I think one of the biggest moments that I love from her this season is literally when Dana had the HOH and she thought she was going to get Alison up out of here. And she got Nathan to use that veto while literally being the house pariah. Like, she was like, go ahead and do that for me. And then he left literally 2 weeks later and she voted his ass out. Like, and she's like, well, I'm done.
Yes. And Alison, she's the one who coined the term floater. And I feel like you're going to see this constantly throughout. It's going to be trailblazers, like Lee said, people who are literally making shit up, like making shit up. She coined the term floater in her season because when she became the house pariah, she knew that her best strategy was to stay in between the two alliances that were battling it out because no one likes her. So if no one likes her, she could just tell them, oh, the other side, you need to focus on them. And she could tell the other side, they need to focus on them.
And she was very methodical with it. Like the way she spoke in the diary rooms about how this is one side and this is another side. And I'm going between both of them. And it was really the origin of floating. Like within the same season, Mother June perfects it. But Alison really is the first one who starts it. And it's so interesting to see her strategically talk about flipping sides in this way because the floater strategy, I mean, the term has since been washed down. Like the girls are just not using it correctly no more at all. Like it's honestly an art, a strategic art of being able to realize when to jump ship, when to jump back. And Alison was doing it really flawlessly because she was disliked, but people felt like, well, we can't count on her. We need her. You know what I mean? Like, iconic.
With Alison, I feel like it's important to note that I feel like what's really impressive about Big Brother and what a lot of people claim the reason they like Dan so much, the reason they like Will so much is being able to make it to the end of the game while being hated. Yeah. And June and Alison were able to do it this season. And Alison being a part of that, she was hated first. Like she was hated real quick, babes. So for her to be able to make it to the very end of the season, the final two, I think that's impressive because she was able to avoid going home because she was winning them vetoes.
Yeah,
she was having other people veto her.
Like that's what's so iconic. The veto was used 3 times this season, all of them on Alison. And mind you, this is the only the second time where this is the first time where Golden and Violet veto is the entire time. So. I mean, a whole entire new concept was only used on one girl.
It was. I think it was really impressive that she was able to get there. And the most impressive thing about her game was her being able to take a step back and assess that she needs to link up with June at the end. That's the person she could beat if she could ever win was June. And her and June agreeing that they understood that. I think that was the best thing for both of their games. And for her to be able to realize that, it just shows how smart she is, I really believe.
Yeah. It was purely strategic. And I think that was great behind it. They did not like each other. They actively hated each other. They were actively targeting each other for a few weeks before. But they both realized at this point in the game, we need to become a duo and we need to take it to the end, especially because the other people's conversations, like Alison and June, they weren't necessarily privy to. The other house guests were basically saying, we will never vote Alison or June. Yeah. They're both floaters, so we don't like either one of them. We can't take them to the end, and then they ended up going to the end together. Period. So, I mean, it's just so iconic, and like, it sucks with Alison. It sucks with all 3 of these women. Because all 3 of these women are, I think, iconic, but they just end up getting kind of lost in the sauce as the seasons go on, because specifically with Alison, I mean, like we're saying, she started the floater strategy, but because June won, it's like she kind of gets most of that credit, and then All Stars happen, and she goes home first. Yeah. So it sucks. But Alison, which is so interesting about her, being her archetype and the way she was an active player. Like I don't think people expected someone who was like Alison to go into that game and play the hell out of it the way she did. I mean, just so, like I said, being unapologetic with the way she was being strategic, like using sex if she needed to, being mean if she needed to, just flipping between sides if she needed to. I mean, it was just really iconic. And it's one of my favorite things about a player in Big Brother is just that you will do whatever to say in the game. And Alison is one of the more early examples of that. Like, she was going to do whatever to say. Yeah.
And it's funny because it's weird when I think of all of these women that we've named, I think of other women. And it shows that they have to be, not have to be, but they seem to always be in tandem with another woman in the game when they're able to actually succeed at being strategic. Like, Diane and Nakomis were literally in a girls' alliance. Alison's path to the end was with June, another woman. And it's like, it's interesting because if Alison didn't go to the end with June, she'd be called a bit, or they were called a bit. Literally, they ate them up.
Their joint slay.
And they were literally just giggling because they're like, well, but it's like people really do not like when women succeed. So it's like they have to be in tandem with each other. It's interesting to see how you relate all these women to other women when you're thinking about their games. You know what I'm saying?
It's also interesting too, because one other player on this list, I mean, the girls probably know. I mean, how women lose for being so-called mean or bitchy. Yeah. But then literally the first introduction of the actual game of Big Brother, a man won who was literally called that's
Judas. That wasn't him. He wasn't called Judas.
I was like, but Dr. Will was a bitch. Nice. Dr. Will was a bitch. Okay. And everyone loved it. Everyone ate it up. But when Alison's a bitch, it's an issue. Yeah. It's like, let her cook.
Period. Let mother cook.
If a man were to strategically, use someone to give veto, she literally used this man in her moment of weakness to get that veto and used on her to stay. Because she would have went that week. Yep. And then she threw him out 2 weeks later. Yep. That type of cutthroatness would never be respected. And I don't get it.
Child. Now this next person. Y'all gonna be... Now,
this is... Now look. Now look. This is not a favorite players list. This is not a favorite strategist list. This is the best. And unfortunately, evil people can be good at things. In fact,
people hate
a lot of bad people are great at things. Look at. I ain't gonna say that example. That's a terrible example.
But look,
a lot of terrible people are great at what they do.
Are good at some things, and this is a terrible person. You remember we was just talking about how it sucks that they got to be called this and this when they're being. She deserved.
The infamous.
Amanda.
Just talk about red energy. I mean, like the screen just went red. I mean,
I'm scared. And she's wearing blue. But
literally,
Amanda's like, other than being a terrible person, we got to say it a lot of times because it doesn't click with people. Other than her being a terrible person, and it's hard to just disregard that. So we're not disregarding it. She is a terrible person who's watching our top 5, but when it comes to the strategy,
she was eating it up, y'all. She was eating it up.
I literally forgot. I just remember. I forgot to write this down, and then I just remembered she was in Big Brother 15. Also a woman who was surrounded by a lot of other women, and it's like, wow, the theme continues.
I love when the women link up.
The first time I remember seeing Amanda, because I remember watching that season and thinking all these girls look the same. I couldn't tell which white woman was which. I didn't know if she was Caitlyn or if she was not. But I remember when I first found out who she was because Alyssa was winning the MVPs, and people was like, we need to use this. And Amanda was people. Mm-hmm. Amanda was the one who was, when she figured out that was the girl winning the MVPs, she said, Helen, we need to use this. Amanda thought of the idea to use Alyssa's fandom, literally, Rachel's fandom through Alyssa, to control part of the game. And she literally did. Also very early on, Amanda was privy to the first alliance made that season, which was the moving company, because she manipulated that man McRae, who she knew would win a lot of comps. So she linked up with him on purpose because she would win. It's a lot already.
It's a lot.
I'm sorry. This is why she's on the list. She knew McRae was going to win a lot of comps because he won the first HOH. She linked up with him. She convinced him to tell her about the Boys Alliance. And she used Alyssa and Helen to help get those men out those first couple of weeks of the game. She controlled the votes.
It was iconic. I mean, you mentioned it off the podcast. She started the initial split of the house. I mean, Aaron and her, racist pack was being who they are. Yeah. And I mean, she was the first person to kind of go and call them out and say, well, y'all are acting like this and we're over here. You know what I mean? It was this sense of unity that the entire house had against this group, and she was the head of it with Helen. And I remember watching this season. Mind you, this was my first season fully watching Big Brother. Was 15. Baby. It's okay. A Mennonite's paying for Candace and Howard, Lord. Oh God. But watching the season, I did love the love-hate relationship between Amanda and Helen. It was very clear that they were honestly each other's biggest rivals. They both had kind of like the sidekick. Helen had Alyssa, Amanda got McRae. It was just cute. And then they both were playing Andy and Aaron. It's like, who was gonna take it? But it was just so iconic. It was always Amanda, I think. I didn't know. The thing is, I had trust in Helen, and that was my problem, because Helen was walking around there trying to teach all of her own allies a lesson, wanting to nominate them to prove something to God knows Jesse, Alyssa. I didn't teach Candace. And that was Helen's issue. But what was so iconic was, so essentially, when Candace was nominated, I believe Amanda was next to her because of the MVP twist. Was that, or she could have been a renom? But either way, the plan was to potentially get her out that week, but they were not able to get the votes to do so. Amanda found that out, and she was like, well, I'm no longer working with Helen and Alyssa. And she told Andy, she didn't convince, she told her minions, Andy and McRae, to go tell Helen that we don't want to work with Amanda anymore, and we want to go after her, and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. And why did Helen buy it? Like a dummy. I just feel like
you don't think, and that's the thing. She bought it because Amanda's smart. She bought it because Amanda's smart. You don't think Andy and McRae are going to do? It's hard to think about. It's hard
to outwardly lie, outwardly go to someone and just lie straight to their face. Yeah. And I think that's what was so interesting about Amanda is because she was willing to do the things the girls didn't feel like they could.
Yeah, very innovative.
And it's like at the same time, she's in the middle of using Aaron, someone who is considered a house pariah that no one likes because of the things she literally said. And Amanda's like, everyone hates her. I like her. The amount of times she's put shields in front of her. McCray was a shield in front of her. Alyssa was a shield in front of her. Aaron was a shield in front of her. I mean, and she was actively putting those people in. It was crazy. I'm sorry, y'all.
Like, let's get into the Aaron thing, because what was interesting that Amanda did that I noticed a few times is that she stole other people's opportunities or even just other people's strategy. Helen would say a strategy and Amanda would do it. Aaron was one of those. So the concept was that Aaron, one of the mean girls, were going to go home. And they had decided that since Aaron was good at comps, what they could do is they could promise that they'll save her so that they could use her. This was Helen's idea, that they could use her to win comps and take people out for them, people that they don't want to take out themselves. Helen came up with the concept, but Amanda enacted it. Amanda was the one who made Aaron promise to her. Amanda was the one who gained Aaron's full loyalty to where every time Aaron won HOH, which was 4 times, sickening, Amanda ran it. Amanda was able to ran it to the point where Aaron won a double eviction, and her showmance at the time, budding showmance Judd, was someone that Amanda needed to go because he was playing decently. And Amanda was like, "It's giving Judd." And Aaron said, "Yes, ma'am." And it's like, I don't know what to
like, it's just, it was crazy, y'all. It really was crazy. And then after, once she tricked Helen, I mean, she kind of just took control from there. I think her biggest blunder was, of course, trusting Andy a little bit too much. But even the week where she finally got taken out, it was by 1 vote. Because
she convinced Alyssa.
After berating Alyssa the week before during her HOH, she needed her vote, and she got it. She got her vote. And it just shows, like, if you're an active player, if you're someone who is in tune to the game, you can do anything. You know what I mean? It's like, as long as you're someone who is just continuously talking to people, continuously working the game, making things make sense for people, you can stay. And I think that was like her biggest thing, which is interesting because I think does she sell houses?
She's a realtor. So
it's like, I feel like maybe that's like a skill.
But so is Danielle.
It just like,
did Danielle do that?
I mean, but Danielle ain't 5-3 twice, so.
That's true.
But still, it was just so interesting to see.
I see.
I mean, people who had no reason to be working with her still flipped to work with her. And it lasted up until what? Didn't she get like 6th? Or 7th?
She got 6th or 7th.
7th.
She got 7th and Alyssa got 6th. It was a double though. So same night.
So it was. I think it was very, very impressive, and she's an infamous strategist, but I think definitely one of I think if you're thinking of like some of the best, my mind really goes to Amanda because I think
that was a lot that she did.
Like the stronghold she had on that season. I mean, nothing was done without Amanda knowing about it.
Period. Literally, until Andy said, "Never mind."
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's like I always say, like, I remember especially when the first season first ended and I was just like not necessarily respecting Andy's game too much. I just thought, well, like, he kind of got lucky. But I still slightly feel that. Like, I mean,
he almost didn't have his chance. He
almost if it didn't happen that week, baby, he wouldn't have a chance at all. Like, I don't think it would have worked out for him. Yeah. So it's just like it just shows like how powerful she was. Like, her influence was crazy that season.
Next, y'all. Now, I think I don't know how people are gonna feel about this one actually, because some people
I know one
person,
some
people underrate this person, I feel. So, but I mean, hey, she's kind of in the middle of the list, so boom.
Maggie Magdalene.
Murderer Maggie. Oh!
Allegedly.
We have Maggie Osborne here. She is interesting player.
A winner.
Interesting winner. And I feel like her winning is one of the reasons I would put her above everyone else who we've listed. Because when it comes to the strategy, her season was kind of simple.
Yeah, it was a split house.
It was split house, them versus them. But what was good about Maggie
pick a side.
Period. What was good about Maggie is that she was essentially the caser of her side. She was the one who was like, we all love Cappy, my bestie. So we all need to stick together because these bitches came for Cappy. Yeah. No? And she kind of it's interesting because Maggie's not good socially, let's be honest. She used Cappy's social ability to create an alliance around her. She used the fact that her partner was so social with all of these people.
Because they love Cappy. Remember Yvette? Oh, Cappy. I just love Cappy so much.
Because they hated Maggie. They didn't like Maggie initially. They only liked Cappy. But whenever the duos were exposed, whenever Cappy was taken out, Maggie was able to literally use the fact that he was cool with them for them to be cool with her. Yeah. And it was.
Yeah. And then also, too, because Cappy was one of the first duos out, I mean, she was kind of that lone wolf in the pack, too. Yeah. So it's like she was able to make connections with the other side, which led her into being able to run literally Howie's HOH. I mean, she convinced him that James was the rat flipping between sides, the floater that needed to go.
If you're
and he did it. And that week, honestly, probably cost them the game. Because
and it probably gave Maggie when that's the thing.
Because they were going back and forth on HOH, and then you basically gave them two.
Yep. It's interesting with Maggie because it's kind of like you can see the point where she won the game with that active move that she literally did. Now, if you're new to Big Brother and you haven't seen anything before BB20, or you've seen BB20 but not BB6, BB20 and BB6 are very comparable. And just imagine Fessy's week of him getting out Scotty. Maggie literally convinced somebody to do that.
So like, JC convincing Fessy is Maggie convincing Howie.
Yeah, shout out to JC. Weird ass. Racist ass. But yes, Maggie literally convinced Howie to take out his own ally. Howie's dumbass did it. And it's not just Howie's dumbass. Howie's dumbass alliance also, because not only did she convince him, but the alliance had to agree with it. You know what I'm saying? But she convinced it. They ended up taking out one of their own allies, and that literally led her to the end of the game. What she was good at doing was not fighting with the other side. They hated each other. The sides hated each other. And the other side didn't like Maggie, but Maggie made sure it was Yvette who they were arguing with. It was Bo who they were arguing with. It was Jennifer who was trying to be the cool kid who was like, I remember that week. The week Jennifer made this deal with Kaser. They were upstairs and they were trying to decide, do we stick to the deal or do we not? It was the whole group of the friendship. Should we stick to the deal or not? And Maggie was like, I mean, I just don't see would they do it for us? And it's like everyone else in the room was like, well, maybe we should stick to the deal. Maybe we should. And Maggie was one of the only ones who was, I think she was literally the only one who was like, well, Jennifer, they wouldn't do that for you.
And mind you, she got no backlash from that. She wasn't just
she wasn't the HOH. She wasn't arguing with
but that's the gag. The gag is Janelle, she kind of had Maggie clocks, but it just never fully worked out. I think Janelle was one of the only ones to nominate Maggie.
Exactly. And she nominated Maggie against Jennifer and then used the veto on Maggie because she was like, I need to put Yvette up because no one likes Maggie. It's like they didn't. But so literally, because Maggie helped convince Jennifer to take out Kaser, that spared her a week because Janelle would have took that bitch out that week. And she didn't because Maggie made sure Jennifer was ahead of her. She kept pushing her own alliance in front of her for the other side to take out. It was very impressive.
And then, I mean, even up until the win, Maggie is the first person to lose both parts of the HOH and then go on to win the game. Yeah. I mean, and that's pretty iconic because it takes a lot of, I think, social strategic maneuvering to be able to do that, especially in this type of season where the game was literally split. I mean, these people could have been hating her this entire time, which they kind of did, but, you know, it was honestly similar to, like, Dan in the way of he took Memphis because she was hated. It was like she was in the end with Yvette, and Yvette was hated by all of them because Yvette was so loud and arguing with all of them.
Once again, her whole alliance was women. Yeah. Like, wow. The way.
And then literally at the end, I mean, Yvette had the chance to cut Maggie and take Janelle for a potential win, some would say. And she literally did not do it because of the essence that Maggie put on the alliance. Like, well, we're not going to flip. We're not going to turn on each other. If you cut one of us for Janelle, you're not going to win. Yvette literally thought I had no chance of winning if I did that, which was probably true because I could see Maggie being like, I'm not voting that girl.
Oh, yes. And the main thing that Maggie, she should have been top 5, but we'll say Maggie is the first person to create the jury pact for an alliance. The concept of where the entire alliance is agreeing that we're not voting for anybody over each other. And I feel like when it comes to strategy, that's so smart. Yeah. Because even if Yvette took that girl, Yvette was scared to take Janelle because of that pact that Maggie made.
It wasn't even an option that she was able to entertain, really.
Yeah.
Because she felt like, well, I'm not going to win. This pact. I think literally Janelle came to her and Yvette was like, I want to, but like,
She did, but she couldn't because Maggie forced them to make a pact to force their hand in this type of situation, and it's like that eats. It just does.
And then she won it all. You had it all.
Now, you know, all these girls, they've been surrounded by women. Now, you know, one that was not.
Now, look. Talk about game changer.
And this is the thing.
She's the first one to win next to a man, too.
She is. And this is the thing. But this is what I will say. I wanted to initially say she didn't have them women surrounding her. But the reason she won was because the women were in jury and they wanted to vote a woman. So every single woman damn near needed. And it's like,
I mean, it's the same comparison we use when it comes to why we need diversity and inclusion in these newer seasons. It's because at the end of the day, look back to a lot of the minority players. I mean, one famous one on this list. I mean, it's interesting too, actually. You know, they're going to use other people within the same race group to help them get to the end because it's just natural. It's just natural. And when you don't have that possibility, like if you let all the women go home early, if there's only one black person in the house, then you're just not going to be as successful because you don't have that advantage to be able to use that. Men have it all the time. We're just men. We work together.
Yep.
You know, before the diversity rule, a lot of Caucasian people had the exact same advantage. Well, we're all white. My friends at home are all white. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
You know, all of my friends at home are black. If I go into that house, I'm the only black person. What do I do?
Good luck.
So
Davon did it.
And she went home early, you know? And then when she came back, who was she working with? Zakiya. You know, James was in the alliance. A lot of the women. You know, you have to work with people that you have. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to work with people who you have those natural things in common with.
Commonalities, yeah. Exactly. Except Nicole. She will not do that. She will do the opposite. She's
not going to work with them.
So this is what I want to say about Nicole first. On my Big Brother 16 rewatch, I was very impressed. And I had a check out my Dan versus Derek video I did, because in there we kind of got into the casts and we talked about the Big Brother 16 cast. And a lot of people think that Nicole wasn't a good player that season, but I don't think that's true, especially on a rewatch. Nicole was dealt a terrible hand that season, and that's not necessarily an excuse, but I feel like even with the terrible hand, Nicole was able to do a lot of building. It's to the point where Derek is on interview saying, I would have worked with Nicole had her and Hayden won that HOH instead of Frankie. And it's like, that alone shows me that Nicole has the capabilities of being a good player, because what happened was she was not in the bomb squad. She was not in the detonator. She wasn't even affiliated. She was nowhere in the majority alliance, but she was able to do what she does best, which is diminish her threat level. She's similar to Nakomis in a way, to where she leaned into the fact that she's this nerd. I'm just Nicole, and I'm from
Albany, Michigan.
I don't know.
They aren't they Cody.
Anyways, so she does this shit on purpose, and when she does it on purpose, it makes people not want to talk to her. It makes people underestimate her, you know. But
can I
what?
Well, I just was so hilarious. I just remember BB16 how we all love Nicole. She was the only person out of that big alliance to win an HOH. She won multiple of them hoes.
3.
She had she came back in the comeback competition. I mean, she was just such an icon. And I remember everyone just hating Christine because we just saw Christine as this man lover, and she just hates women, and she's gonna get all the women because she's jealous and nasty. And
whole time,
Nicole was the real enemy, baby. What Jose say? You're a snake on your season, and you're a snake now.
Shut up! Don't ever not trust a black man. Period. Wait,
but I think Nicole, it's very easy to hate on her game at 18. But I think removing yourself, you know, especially years later. I mean, Nicole is a really, really great player, and I think a very under the radar strategist. I think a commonality between all of her seasons is what you said. Is like her ability to make herself seem such a non-threat that people are just going to allow her into their group. Allow her to make close relationships with everyone in that group, and then not take her out until the end, where she can win these mental competitions and stay. And she did it like almost every time. And like it almost happened in 16 too if it wasn't for the scenario.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A lot of people don't remember, but Nicole won HOH and created an alliance with Derek and Cody. She grabbed Derek and Cody. She grabbed Hayden. She said, we need to be a 4, called the Freakazoids or some shit. No, that was the name of the thing. Whatever. That was called Nerdy something. And the 4 of them were going to be together. Derek and Cody were actually going to be a part of it. A lot of people forget that. She could have been in a good position. And one thing about her is I think she uses showmances very well. her getting with Hayden was great because he was in front of her. He was a shield. She was not even in the majority, and she still had a shield. It's not easy to have a shield in front of you when you're not in the majority of your life. And she had Hayden, and he went home instead of her, and she won that HOH for her.
It was nasty. Oh, it was nasty. And then Christine playing home.
But yes, I think, and then on 18, she came back, and she showed, and this is the thing, with 18, it's interesting because she kind of took a lot of Derek's strategy in a way, and so in the sense of she got a big alliance, she insulated herself, but she still stayed true to who Nicole was, and that's what it's going to be a bunch of men, and this is where she kind of coined the I'm going to have a bunch of men in my alliance winning the comps for me, and they're going to be doing all the work for me.
But that's what's so good about her, though, is that as a person, as a player, I think she stays true to herself. She's not going in there trying to be something she's not or play at a way that she can't play. She plays up to her strengths, and it helps.
And doesn't
her
own up to it, but she plays to her strengths.
But that's part of the whole entire thing. It's the facade of I'm just this innocent little girl from Oakley, Michigan, who doesn't know what she's doing, even though she's a Superman. Because even in 18, it's like the intricate way she gets people to turn on people. Because like she's in that first majority alliance, and one of the big early things that was happening was that she wanted to dissociate herself with Devon and Frank and things like that. And it was easy to do with Frank because of the things that he was doing. But like I remember specifically with like Devon, how it started was just small things, just very small, very subtle, and then it just keeps going. So it just builds and Devon needs to go. And now it's a house consensus because Nicole has been in our ear charging about it for 5 fucking weeks. And she did the exact same thing in All Stars with us, like Janelle, Bailey. I mean, the Devon again. Okay, it's just like it's like that's how she like does it. It's very under the radar. Like people don't realize that they're being influenced and swayed. And what was so impressive in 18 was that once Paulie left and her structure was decimated, it became a house of duos. Her and Corey. James, Natalie, and Paul and Victor, and the way she played each duo amongst each other. I mean, very impressive. Very impressive, especially because in that situation, I mean, she's the returnee. I mean, one of the more I'd say experienced ones, because James, I mean, I wouldn't be talking about James. And they it's like still let her play them. And I think that's how the jury saw it in the end. Y'all let this girl manipulate y'all.
Because, and you got to remember, going into that final 6, Victor, Paul, Natalie, Michelle, that final 7, because Natalie, Michelle, James, Victor, and Paul were all in an alliance against.
They were the targets
against Nicole and Corey. And after Nicole won HOH, she took out Michelle, I believe. Whoever. After Michelle goes home,
that's what's hilarious
too. And Nicole and Corey, Nicole pushed the concept that it's not y'all versus us, it's 2v2v2.
Yep.
And you need to be him and he need to be you.
Because that's how it happened. On Natalie's week, she convinced Natalie not to target her and go after Victor. Victor went home, but then he came right back. Nicole went into it. She took out Michelle. She said, I got taking out a duo. I'm taking out Michelle. Y'all battle it out. And that's exactly what happened. It's just like, but that's why it's so, but that's also why it's so just interesting, her gang, because it's the appearance that she puts on that make it seem so impressive when she gets to the end. Y'all let little Nicole from Michigan convince y'all to go after each other and let her, because at that point she was winning HOA. She wins when she needs to. And it's like, I mean, literally the story of Nicole. The comps,
she like was low key and y'all let little old girl get to the end. That's not no little girl. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Literally.
If you've ever heard the term. It's
I mean, she 100%. She weaponizes her
victimization.
Yeah, she does. She weaponizes her tears. She weaponizes her. She victimizes herself. She does. She strategically victimizes herself. She shouldn't do it in real life,
but in the game, it eats. I'm sorry. If I see her in the future being a Karen, yuck. But
I ain't gonna lie. Side note, I wouldn't be surprised if Nicole became a Karen. I definitely wouldn't. But it's like, but in the game sense, I mean, it really ate because I don't think a lot of people like the fact that she was able to win by doing that, like get that respect, and then honestly get to the end twice. I mean, it's crazy. Like she's like, I think Nicole is really one of a kind. Like she's a very interesting study when it comes to Big Brother women and Big Brother players in general.
I agree. What I think is very impressive was, first of all, her coming back and doing it, and then coming back on All Stars and making it to Final 3 as one of 2 winners.
I want her to win again, y'all. I'm sorry. I want her to win again.
This thing about All Stars, a lot of people, they're like, oh my God, Cody just ran over them, da da da. What I like about Nicole is that there was a point at the triple, I want to say, that I was like, oh, she is going to get out. Cody is going to tell Enzo to vote her out because she's a winner and he wasn't really with her. But when you think about it, sure, a lot of them were snowed by Cody, but Nicole was less snowed by Cody than the other girls because Cody chose Nicole over Danny, over Memphis, over Tyler. So she was wrong, but she was only wrong by one person. She thought she was Cody's number 2. She was Cody's number 3. And it's like, I feel like that deserves some respect.
But that's what's so crazy because out of everyone, by the time I got to top 8, when it comes to what the competitions were, Nicole was the biggest threat. Nicole was a competition away from winning this entire game again. Yep. Because I think if she would have cut Cody and took Enzo, she probably would have won it again.
She wouldn't have cut Cody, but...
that's the thing.
But I still think the votes... I still think...
Damn, that slipped my mind.
But this is the thing. With her speech and if it actually happened, I think it would be a chance. Because sure, Cody dominated, but he let Nicole get to the end.
I will say that's why I did not get why by the end of that season. It was that obsession of I won and I want to prove that I can beat Cody. And it's like, well, baby, you're the winner. Why do you have to prove you can beat Cody?
Yeah,
take his ass out.
That was weird. And in a way, maybe it's girl power, but because Nicole's concept of girl power is so different than a lot of other women. And I feel like a part of it is she used a lot of these. I think a part of her does feel, I guess, like that her pussy got some power or she got some power. I don't know. She likes using men to the very end and beating them. I think she does like that. And I think that's why that happened. But child, let's move on to the next. On to the next. One of the OG mothers.
OG.
We have Miss Song.
June. Miss Don't be confused with July or May.
Period. We have June Song. Now, this is the thing. June, I feel like, is hashtag the pioneer when it comes to strategy, damn near. Because the floater strategy is something that's very hard to accomplish. Alison did not win being a floater. Only really June and Andy have the entire concept of the fucking game. And a lot of people attempt to be floaters. And it's very, very hard, I feel like, to execute. So to me, I've always felt like the floater strategy is one of the most impressive because it's kind of a solo strategy. You're intentionally vulnerabilizing yourself by being alone so that you can flip around. But all the other men who flipped around, James Ryan tried to do it. All the James tried to do it, damn near.
Then get caught up.
We saw Scotty try to do it. It's like every time someone else tries to do it, it's not executed other than June and Andy. I think JC did a good job. But for the most part, it's very hard to execute that. So for her to do it in such an early season and win, I feel like it's honestly amazing. And which is why I put her so high, because when it comes to those early seasons, the people who are pioneering and then winning, girl, you created a strat or helped create a strategy and he won.
She's the first player to receive 0 eviction votes and go on to win the game. I think that shows how iconic the floater strategy is. So, and also too, I think a lot of people, like, they champion the June and Alison of that season, but what people really don't realize is that June also had a secret alliance with her ex in the house G. During the season, like, people were not really working with their exes like that. Like even Alison, like, she had to deal with her at one point or another, but it wasn't like G and June had a secret alliance from day one to when he went home, sort of like Jason and Danielle. And what was interesting about this allegiance, well, June's allegiances in general, I mean, with Alison and G, was that she were using it purely for strategic purposes. When she didn't need G anymore, it gave very much, well, G, we had fun.
Bow out, babe.
You can go. I remember she was in the HOH room and she was talking to Julie, and Julie was like, so, kind of basically what's happening. She was like, well, I've decided that I no longer need G in the game. He will be leaving this week. I'm pretty sure he thinks I'm fighting for him, but that's not the case. And Julie was like, well, did you think that he knows? She was like, no. Like, she was done. She was done. And what I love about it is just similar to Alison, is just the unapologeticness of it. Like, her attitude was very much like, I'm here to win and I'm going to win. And I don't like any of you bitches while doing so. And it was just iconic. It was so iconic.
And I want to emphasize, like, I feel like a lot of people don't think about it or know, but the concept of a secret alliance this early in Big Brother is very impressive, and people did not do it. It only happened once before with Danielle and Jason the season before. And this season, it was only one secret alliance. Alliances were open from literally until Big Brother 12. Alliances were open every fucking season until Big Brother 12. It was split houses. 11 was a split house.
A lot of seasons kind of go house versus house.
8 was a split house. 9 was a split house. 7 was June and the secret alliance with Danielle and Jason were really the only secretive shits in these early seasons for a while. And it's very impressive to intentionally be secretive. And that's why I feel like it's way more impressive that she had this G thing. And that's kind of what zooms her above Alison for me. Like, that is what helped June so much get to the end. G's going to be arguing for her in the jury. G's going to be literally helping her take out people who she don't want in the game. She can advocate for him. He was literally agreeing with her on who they should take out, what they should do. And I feel like that secretiveness, especially early on, it just puts you levels above a lot of the other players. And I think that's what I like about it. And
then also, too, kind of like, I think, other than the win factor, like to go June over Alison was just like the finesse of it all, the secrecy, how you're kind of saying, like, Alison was very upfront in their face about a lot of the things she was doing. They were clocking June, but June is the type of girl who would,
she plays coy.
Erica.
She plays coy as fuck.
Hey, Alison is very much girl. Well, I'm not going to talk to you this week because I'm on their side.
Literally.
We're not friends.
I'll see you next time.
But June is very much like, well, no, we're still friends and we're still cool and I like you. And, you know, and the whole time, no, it's not giving that at all. Very, very iconic. June needs to play again. June needs to play again.
Give us this legend
bad. And honestly, now that it's a BPOC type situation, I just feel like, because now that we're back into strategy, that can be like the one that got her to win. And I would love to see it in a newer version.
I agree.
Because that would be before. Like, that is crazy.
I know, literally.
But to even be playing, like it's like I'm sitting here comparing June and Nicole's game. Nicole's game was impressive. We saw her play 3 times, but it's like June's was still impressive. Like, that was once, and she ate that up.
Literally. And that was 10 years. That was she had 2 seasons to look at. Baby, please. 2 seasons of nothing. She basically did it from scratch. So it's
that's what makes it very impressive. Like, a lot of these people, even the ones who were towards the end, it's like, y'all were doing this in the second version of the game. Like, all the rules wasn't even situated yet. It was a whole different house. I mean, and y'all was eating it up like that.
Child, let's go to the next one, girl.
I mean, these the big 3. Do we need a big speech? Should we give a big speech for the big 3?
We don't need a big speech.
I mean, the big 3 is giving one
It's
word.
giving Lil Weezy, the Barbie, and Just Jake.
Jeez. I mean, I think if I had to say one word for this big 3, I would say control.
I would say goddess. La, da, 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 da. So, number 3. Boom. She loves the number 3.
Vanessa Ness.
Vanessa Ness Roos. Girl. So, we had been in a drought, in my opinion. Because, remember, Nicole won 18. So look at this list.
Check it twice.
And look how old the backgrounds look. Like, there was only one person who was past Big Brother 6.
Yeah, for most people, they don't count Amanda because how terrible
and it was Amanda.
Is, so.
And Amanda literally, she got 6th. Like, it wasn't that good. Vanessa was a breath of fresh air, bitch. Yeah. Like, when I tell you we hadn't had a woman succeed, it was bad for us. And then she came along. Now, what Vanessa did at the beginning, first of all, Vanessa was another pariah. I think being a pariah, making it to the end, you are automatically that girl. People love Dan and Will. What are these other girls? That's all. These girls. Vanessa was a house pariah. Nobody liked her because she was crying and all
that first week, like the fact that what Vanessa turned into from what was happening the first week. I mean, this girl was on the feeds crying, missing home. She didn't want to be there no more.
How much was the crying lies? Because we see later in the season she continues to kind of cry, and it's like,
but that's always the discourse on Vanessa, because one of the main things that she would do with her allies and people that she wanted to target was she would have emotional blowups. I mean, that's really interesting about her.
Make shit up.
Usually, look at the people on this list, other than Amanda. Usually, if you're going to have that level of control, you're not going to be blowing up and going off on people and things like that. And this season, like, BB15 was toxic. BB17 wasn't really on that type of toxic level. Yeah. She was just doing it. And she would be like, well, do you not want to work with me? Do you not like, I don't get it. Like, I have your back, you don't have my back. And then the person would be like, I do have your back. No, like, I'm sorry, I'll use veto on you. I get it. And it's like, was that strategic or was she just an emotional, like, people would like her an emotional puppet master? So was she using her emotions?
She was.
That she actually had?
This is the thing. Let's get to it, because first of all, in the beginning of the game, she wasn't connected to anyone, and then Davon clocked that there was twin twists going on. It eventually got to Vanessa last. Damn near everyone in the house knew. No one was saying much, doing anything with the information, and then Vanessa found out, and she was like, So she got in the bed with Julia, and she was like,
I heard about the little twist.
I know your tea, bitch. She said, I know your tea. And Julia was like, girl, what's the tea? And then Vanessa was like, are you a twin? Julia felt really comfortable. So Vanessa basically used the fact that Julia and Liz were twins to basically force them in an alliance. She was like, people are going to hurt y'all. Y'all need help. I can help y'all. I can protect y'all. We can form a group. And Julia really, really loved this. She told Liz. Liz was like, okay, girl. And then they formed an alliance with Austin, who was showmancing one of the twins, Liz, kind of. And she formed this group. Now, at this moment, it's a small group that she has in mind, but there's a larger group that's actually working together. It's Audrey, Davon, James, Shelly, Clay. They're all kind of controlling the house at this point. Shelly done 1, 2 HOHs, all of this shit. So this is like week 2, I want to say. And Vanessa helps break that alliance up because apparently Audrey had been doing a lot. And Vanessa knew that it would be best to break up that alliance by causing a blow up with Audrey and the house, Audrey, Davon in the house. So she fake cries about what Audrey told her, that people were coming after her. And Davon hears about it. She ends up telling Davon about it. And then when Davon hears about it, the entire big alliance gets together in a room with Vanessa when she's sitting on the fucking chair, and she's pretending to cry with his fucking glasses on, his hoodie on, blow up this whole alliance. And literally, Davon is arguing, Meg, did you not? It was a lot going on. So she blew up the alliance.
Audrey, no, Audrey was so caught up.
So she used that alliance's weaknesses, and they were already feeling some type of way about Davon. It was a lot going on, but she used it because once she found out about the twins twist, she got the twins on board and Austin on board. She went up to Shelly and Clay, who was the HOH at the time, and she told them about it. And it kind of trapped them in this secret. When everyone knows a secret, you feel so much more connected to them. They didn't have any social relationship with Vanessa. They didn't like Vanessa, but they had a secret that they shared with Vanessa, and it made them feel way more connected than they actually were. She didn't give a fuck about them.
She was a game bot. Like, I remember them mentioning that a lot. Like, I don't have any personal connection with Vanessa. We don't talk personal at all. She talks game 24/7. And I think that's what's so interesting, because this is week 2, and this is someone who wasn't necessarily a target, but wasn't well connected. And she has now flipped the entire game on its head and centered it around herself. She's in a powerhouse alliance with Austin the twins and Clay and Shelly and herself. All people who have been winning HOHs, and they both, her and Austin, win the next HOHs. Yeah. So it's like they just kind of like she ate that. I mean, she really ate that. And it also just goes to show, like, honestly, you don't have to be in a good position or a bad position or to be actively in the game to do shit to put yourself in a better position. Because she didn't have to do any of that. She could have sat there and did nothing, but she would not be in the center of the game and be able to get herself to the end of the way she did. Like, you have to be an active player and do certain things to, position yourself well. And that was something that she was always doing. Like, I think it was so interesting too. Like, she would always just make it was like week by week deals, it seemed. Like, she had the main alliance, but when it came to the other side of the people in the middle, it was like, well, I'll keep you safe here. Like, everything with her is so transactional. Yeah. And, you know what I mean? Like, it was like a business in that bitch. She said, okay, you're going to pay me for this week, and I got you next week. Okay, you're good? Okay.
I think
get my money on time.
One very savvy thing she did was early in the game. Well, there was 2 very savvy things she did. One was the Jeff move. So Jeff was loved by majority of the house, but specifically Liz and Austin. Liz and Austin had a very good relationship with Jeff. This is why I like Liz, because Liz did not vote that nigga out. I don't give a fuck.
That's hilarious.
Liz and Austin had this good relationship with Jeff. And Liz and Austin were core pieces for Vanessa. And Jeff was the type of person who he can convince people to do stuff. He had Jackie. It was a lot going on. So she was like, I want Jeff to go. So she lied. She made up a lie randomly the week she was HOH to make sure that she could backdoor Jeff. She made up a lie and told Austin, he has to go. He has to go because he did this to me. He did this. I don't remember.
She's like, go off of him. Go, call him out.
Go, literally.
Go.
So they went downstairs and them together called Jeff out for, I literally forgot what it was because it was made up.
He was like, she was like, did you or did you not say that you can't work with Clay and Shelly as a duo?
Yeah, that's what it was.
And he was like, what are you talking about? So she's like, so you're going to lie to me? So you're going to lie in my face? You know what? You just sealed your fate. No. I'm done. And then, okay. Mind you, she was upstairs like, what can I do?
Yep.
So Jeff can go home this weekend, not Audrey. I think she went and had this emotional blow up. So that's what comes like, okay, are your emotions real or is this just for play?
Right. So at this point, the house had been divided in a way that it was Shelly Clay and Vanessa's minions. And Vanessa. And then on the other side, it was Jason, who was very loved. It was Meg, James, and they had a group, and Becky in them. So what happened was, the week after that, I believe, or around this time, Jason was nominated. And he was like the core of that other side. And Vanessa won a veto. And she was like, why not use it? She decided to make a deal with Jason and his group. Basically, that let me use this veto on you. I got y'all back, and y'all can have my back in the future.
Lying.
So she made a deal with Jason, used the veto on him, and then of course she didn't keep the deal, but she used that. And I feel like using every single inch of the game is something Vanessa did. She used every piece of information. Twins, bitch, I'm making an entire.
And then also every single person, Steve and Johnny Mac, these wild cards, most people are not talking to. Who's talking to them? Vanessa
used these wild cards more than I've seen ever done. Usually, and that's the thing, Derek
did
it too with Victoria. What the best players do is they use every single player.
Yep.
And she had a relationship with these two people who were not really well centered, specifically Steve. The reason that opposing alliance failed is because Steve won that double eviction HOH.
He became a late comp beast.
Yeah, and he started winning those comps, and he started taking those girls out on the opposite side because he was loyal to Vanessa to an extent. He was loyal to Vanessa in the final jam. And it sucks because that was Vanessa's blind spot.
I hated that. I hated that because I had hated Vanessa the whole season. I ain't gonna lie. I was watching it angrily. I was mad since they went home week 2. But by the end, I was like, give my sister her 10. She rightfully deserved them. And it did suck feeling like someone who just honestly was able to make the right move at the right time, got it, and she did it. But it can be seen as impressive on Steve End. It just feels more just knowing a blow to Vanessa. I mean, the work that she put in, especially like we were saying earlier in the podcast, women who have the type of control, they don't usually win. So it would have been great to see Vanessa win and be in those conversations. But she did, best believe.
And it probably would have changed. It would have made the history of Big Brother just seem a little bit different, a little bit more. I don't know, but
she's just. But honestly, I want to talk about another move she did too, because I think it was like late in the game. Who was all there? It was when Julia was still there. How many people left?
It was when Julia was finna go. It was like top 7 or top 6. Top 7 or top 6.
Yeah. So literally, it was a eliminator veto, and it was basically her, Johnny Mac, and Steve versus all twins by this point. And she in the eliminator was talking to Julia, and she was like, Julia, choose to go against Austin and eliminate him. And of course, if you don't go against your own ally in the game, like one of them needed to win veto. And she had literally convinced this girl to go against her best interest in veto and choose Austin. Julie ended up going home that week, by the way. Not necessarily because of this move, but it's hilarious to see how Vanessa was working at every single moment. Like, no one thought that she was going to be strategically doing this, and I think that's why their guards were down, and then look what happened.
That's what I'm saying. Because that thing, they didn't need, Austin couldn't win veto because if he wins, he can take one of the twins off and then they'll have the votes. So that's why she needed Austin to lose. And she just caught Julia off guard. Like you said, it was to the point where when she did it, Liz was like, why'd you pick him? Why'd you pick him?
Well, Vanessa said it.
But what I love about Vanessa is she would slight people and they would still work with her. Liz ended up wanting to go
because they felt like they needed her.
She forced them to feel like they needed her. And it worked for a good amount of time.
It worked. I think she's so iconic. Definitely one of the best to never win. I mean, a lot of women on this list are some of the best to never win.
Including
this next one.
This next one.
I would probably say the best. Number one.
We have
all this melanin top 2.
Boom.
Tiff. I mean, if the girls thought Tiffany was going to be anywhere past number 3, I don't know what podcast you thought
she was almost not number 2. She was almost number 1. Top 2 and not number 2.
But we didn't want to gag out that hard. We didn't want to gag out the truth. We didn't want to gag out with the truth yet. Maybe a few more years. We'll come back.
We'll let time pass. We'll let history set its course. It just felt too fresh.
When she comes back and win All Stars, it will be undeniable.
Bigger than 25. Boom. We have Tiffany Mother Mitchell. Y'all know what the fuck she did.
She wouldn't even explain it.
Y'all know what the fuck she did. Next. No, Miss Mother Tiffany Mitchell. She was
Tiffany Master Plan Mitchell.
I'm gonna start off with what I said this before. I'll say it again. She was playing against one of the most smartest casts in Big Brother damn history.
Explain yourself, because the girls seem to think that's not.
That's literally true. Okay, first of all, let's go back to the casting director. The casting director, Jesse Tenenbaum, has spoken out and said he intentionally looked for a high amount of super fans and a high amount of non-super fans who were clearly intelligent and able to catch on the game, because he intentionally wanted it to be a great comeback with a great amount of strategic people. So that's cleared up by him. So let's say hypothetically he didn't succeed. Girl, where? Because from my understanding, if we watched the same season, they were genuinely all on. They were onto each other. Before the cookout was decided upon and before it was created as an actual core alliance, there were literally so many different sub-alliances, sub-things going on because everyone was playing. Sarah Beth was trying to make a plan with the Jokers. She had a great relationship with Kylan. We had Claire creating a bond with Tiffany and her allies. There was Alyssa and Christian creating Final Twos, Final Fours, Final Threes, the Royal Flush. All of these different alliances.
I mean, even Whitney, damn near the cookout member,
was convincing Christian and Alyssa. It was a bunch of active players, honestly, down to Frenchie.
And that's the thing. I think some people don't understand that being an active player is what we mean when we say
that
things
alone
like that.
is good gameplay. Period.
Like if you're someone that's going to take the initiative, which everyone in BB23 did. You're a good game player. I mean, you're not playing with no shade to Victorious, who are just going to sit there for summer vacation. I think everyone in BB23 was playing to a certain extent.
And it's okay to disagree, but I would love to know in the comments what cast y'all think was better. Some people said 18, and I think 18 was decent, but I can't personally say that.
I mean, when you start getting into the Brontes and the Bridgets and
I was just going to say, like they were, and that's the thing. I will say, what's similar to 18 and 23 is that 18 they were all active. Bridget might not have been the best player, but she was active.
Okay,
she was moving.
In alliance.
So was Bronte. So was Natalie. So I will say, in comparison, I think 18 is cute, but I still think Big Brother 23 definitely had, in my opinion, the best cast. And Tiffany was able to snow all of them. So we all know the cookout strategy. We all understand that it's the parachute strategy. They each get one person who's not in an alliance. They make it seem like that's their number one. So that way, if anyone catches on to them, they're catching on to the wrong thing.
The master plan.
So before/while that's being created, Tiffany is also creating a literal onion alliance in the house to snow the rest of the house into thinking that this is
the parachute. She's creating an onion to hide the royal parachute.
Literally within the royal flush, she's literally created herself as the core of the royal flush when that's not even the real game. She has an alliance inside of the royal flush with Derek X, Claire, herself, and Kylan. And then she also has a sub-alliance with Claire herself, Christian, and Alyssa within the royal flush. She's already the most insulated.
And then she has the cookout that's also within.
And then she had the cookout who wasn't even in the royal flush. Some of them didn't even know about the royal flush until the game ended. Ozza and Big D, and it's like, damn. But she literally was insulated within a fake game that she created she gave half of the cast unplugged remotes.
I said, play that.
Said, go play.
Deal with that. Like, you know when you play with your little brother, little sibling, and you give them the remote that's not plugged in? That's what Tiffany was doing for 90-something days. She's like, here you go, baby.
Like, please. And
here you go.
and then, of course, she had the cookout created the master plan. I think what is most impressive about Tiffany was her painting targets.
Yeah,
I never seen a clean painting of targets.
Girl,
Tiffany had it. Like we've talked about, even on this list, Vanessa and Amanda doing it. Theirs was not so effortlessly and untraceable. You knew Amanda was making the target. You knew Vanessa was making the target. People
the girls didn't know.
They thought they wanted who Tiffany wanted.
Oh, it was so iconic.
It was to the point where there would be a conversation in another room of people repeating Tiffany's words, not even knowing they're repeating their words. One time, Derek X clocked it. He was like, "Have you been talking to Tiffany?" He said to Hannah.
But that's what's great is that her allies, they trusted her so much. The fact that we're like, they knew she was running the game. And they didn't care. They needed like, her. They said, well, she's going to get us where we need to be into the game because they trusted her. And it was the type of alliances that she was building with people. I mean, she was building, family type bonds. Like, it's like Claire loved her. DX loved her. Kristen loved her. Yep. It's like they were all willing, and some of them did, put their games on the line for her best interest. I mean, it really all, I think, culminated in week 2 when you were basically describing how she created the royal flush centered around herself. That week, she was not the HOH.
Using
Kylan was the HOH, and it wasn't even originally what he wanted to do. Kylan wanted to stick with what the bullshit Frenchie was starting up with at first. It wasn't until Tiffany was like, well, don't you think that you should want to have your own allegiances and things like that, forming the royal flush around the queens? And it was just so iconic to see because, one, her archetype. I mean, we definitely did not expect Tiffany to come up in this game eating it up like this. Like, her pre-jury shit was very much like, I'm Tiffany, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner. It was giving none of this. But she went in that game. I mean, just watching her have conversations with people, it's like she would get people to just honestly open up about their entire game, about who they wanted to work with, who did they want to trust. And she took that and she put it into her own hands. Like literally, like you said, like the first 5 evictions, Tiffany. Honestly, you can say 6 because Brittany as well. I mean, Tiffany.
Yep. She really set it up. And I think that's what impresses me is her control. I feel like one of my qualities, other than, being a pariah and making it, I think even better than being a pariah and making it to the end, like Vanessa, like Alison, like June, is having so much control and making it to that end game. And that's what we saw Amanda and we saw Tiffany do, actually, is just have just so much control over the game and make it to the end of the game. And I feel like with Tiffany, a lot of people knock her for going home early, but the thing, which is like, it should be no shade to the people who don't get it, but it should be simple, in my opinion, is that she intentionally went to the end of the game with people who she knew was not best to be in the end game with because of a totally different thing. So in Tiffany's mind and in Tiffany's goal was to get to final 6. She got her goal. Technically, Tiffany's
the goal, when she decided to go with the master plan, her goal was no longer to win. That's why you have to be very aware of that. Every woman on this list wanted to win. They did. They wanted to be the winner of Big Brother. Tiffany wanted that, but she was no longer playing for that. She was playing to get the 6 to the 6. And she understood that no matter she could go home when that happened. She was very aware of that pre-jury when she came up with the master plan. And she was like, I have to do this for the culture. And she did it. Yeah.
So people knock her, a lot of people knock her for not adjusting to this new to this new end game that she knew she was going to be in. And I think that what's unfair to do is for that, because she didn't know she was choosing that until week 4, first of all. So it's like the first 3 weeks she had spent building relationships with people who she was not sure she was going to get to the end of the game with. So I feel like that alone is one thing that it's like, I don't know why you're saying that. Another thing is some people, no matter who you are in the game, some people are not going to trust you. No matter who you are. You could be the best player. Derek, Donnie never trusted him the entire game. Period. Every single great player you have, Dan, they were calling him literally Judas. Every great player is going to have 1 or 2 people who they don't like. If everyone else loves you, that's not enough to knock them. And the one person who didn't trust or didn't like Tiffany was Big D. And had she been able to take him out, Big D would not be in the end game. And that really harmed her, because if it wasn't Big D, it would have been someone else like Claire. Like even Alyssa would have went with Tiffany before she went with literally Xavier. So it's like, honestly, anybody else in that end game would have helped Tiffany get to the end. She was choosing to go with people who literally didn't like her, and she knew they didn't like her, and she didn't care because it was for a bigger cause. And I feel like people aren't using critical thinking when they're judging, I guess, that part of the game, in my opinion. Like, she just wouldn't have went with him. That's the answer. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
And you also have to think about too. I mean, the other people's motivations at that point. I mean, Kyle's motivations were clear. He wanted to sit in with Xavier. I mean, once he kind of came to that decision in his head, there was not much turning him from that. And honestly, hate to say it, that was not a logical decision for his game because look what ended up happening to him. Everyone on the and I will say we had the bird's eye view, so everyone on the outside knew Xavier had no intention of taking him, but Kyle wasn't able to see that. And even though Hannah and Tiffany were telling him that, he didn't see it. So I think it's not even like it got the top 6 and she was just automatically going. Like the game was still there. It's just, I mean, not all the logic was. No shade.
Yeah. So really, I just think the best thing about Tiffany was the control she had and her shaping the entire like strategical layout of the season. And I think those are very extremely impressive, especially for a woman. Honestly, it's hard for a woman to be able to control the house that way without it being an iron fist. Because with Vanessa, it was iron fist. With Amanda, it was iron fist. Tiffany did it in a friendly way.
It also felt like shaky with them. It always felt like it could always end. With Tiffany, it was up until
she was never going home.
That it never gave that she was in danger. This woman was never in danger. I want to go back to that. Like every time I think about how she literally had every other player in that game playing an entirely different game that literally no longer made sense when jury hit. Like it was just some of the most iconic gameplay that we have ever seen. Like she deserves her 10s so much and much more. And we'll try not to give it to her. I mean, you're just a hater because it makes no motherfucking sense. Like, I mean, no, I like it's that feeling of watching her where it's like you're watching one in a million player. You know what I mean? Like literally. You're watching history.
You're watching a legend,
and that's exactly what that was. That's why it's like I know when I was like, oh my god, like. Because you always have to realize, like, recency bias. Like, is my recency bias making me feel like she's better than what she is? But it's like, I mean, a year or so later, 2 years later, and it's like, no, she's still mother. I mean, no one is doing that. And I don't think anyone ever will. Again, no one is going to be able to replicate the cookout structure in the way that she did. I mean,
and that's the thing. She succeeded.
Masterful.
They succeeded, specifically Tiffany, with one of the hardest alliance structures to actually succeed with. You have to do so much. With 6 people. And you have to do so much continuous maintenance. You have to have so much continuous trust. It's a lot going on at the same time. And she and they were able to succeed. And it's like, that's amazing.
It was great. Because she also, it's like, I'm sorry to say on her, fuck it, it's like mother. But it's just like, even, it was like the system of, okay, you have this person, you have this person. Tiffany had everybody.
She had everyone and she was giving out the people.
Like,
here, Hannah, be friends with Derek X, remember? Like, she was giving them the people. And then she was also
cool with all of them.
Sarah Beth, who she had been slandering for weeks on end, was like, well, Tiffany's the person I trust the most, kind of.
Because and then her reasoning was, well, she actually listens to me when I talk. I feel like she's one of the only people who listens to me when I speak to her. Like, that just goes, I mean, this woman has social games. She has strategic games. She can win competitions, alliance building. She's a mother. She's a Black woman. Like, how can you not stand? I just feel like, and I just love it that the number one in top, like the top 2, the top Black women. You know,
because let's get to number 1, y'all.
That's what's hard.
Y'all know who the fuck.
The OG.
Y'all know who the fuck it is.
The OD. Original Danielle.
Miss Mother, Miss Queen, Miss Legend, the real OG to strategy, dead ass.
Literally.
She created Big Brother strategy.
Like literally researching
Big Brother strategy.
Researching Danielle, how many times she's in the diary room, like, in this game, you have to do certain things to make your allies so that they can use you. Like there were moments where like there were things that she didn't want to do, and she's like, "Well, look, America, this is what you have to do." Like she was teaching people how to play.
Comparing season 2, Tiffany was teaching people to play. Danielle was teaching. I think if you get to the elite level of teaching other people how to play while you're playing, that's why you're top 2.
But I think what's so iconic, the reason why I think Danielle has to be number 1 is because she's the this is season 2.
She's the OG.
She is telling you bitches how to play Big Brother.
To play a game that doesn't even exist.
Keep your eyes your keep your ears open, your eyes, your mouth shut.
This is a game that's never been played.
I didn't even say it.
This is a game that's never been played, and she's teaching them how to play. And it's like, oh, I think it was very impressive. And one thing about Danielle is she had control, but she was not in the majority alliance. And that's what's amazing. There was a majority alliance created. Danielle was not in it, but she still was able to control the flow of the game. She was able to help create this opposition. She was able to help get these people who were not all in this big alliance together to help dismantle this big alliance, pulling people from the big alliance like Lisa, making sure to put her under her wing. She had people under her wing. She had Marcellus and Amy under her wing, and she didn't even like them. She had Jason under her wing the whole game. She brought Lisa under her wing, and I feel like that is what's impressive, is that in season 3 of the game, where the game hasn't even been created yet, you're making it. You're making it happen. You're dismantling big alliances. You're flipping people to your side. You're encouraging people to play the game how you want them to play. That's the thing. She's teaching them the game, but she's teaching them the game that's going to help her get to the
literally. And it's like, I mean, and it starts like the first Secret Alliance, her and Jason. I mean, she said she came into that game. She was like, I'm going to have 1 hour. I trust. Everyone else can suck it, basically. And she got with Jason. And I mean, together, I mean, because it seemed like such an easy concept. Like, you get with someone, you work with them secretly, and you guys are able to divide and conquer. Like, what helped both Jason and her out was that people were coming to tell them different information. And they would sit together and be so transparent with each other that they were able to help each other in the game. It reminds me, honestly, like, we've played online games before. Like, it would happen in online games. We didn't always know me and Cheryl knew each other, and they tell us information about each other, and we go right back to each other with their information, because you're able to do that. Like, it's honestly such an easy way to play when you have that, because, I mean, basically not everyone knows that you know everything in the game. Like, you're able to know every aspect of each side of the game, and that is really what helped them in this season.
And that's the thing. Me and Taryn talked about it in my discussion, but this is the same strategy as the cookout strategy. And it's interesting to kind of have them number 1 and 2, because this strategy is elite. It works the best when you have people who are getting information from this side of the house, and you can all talk about it. And it's like, that's the same shit that was happening there. It's just, this is a mini version of it. It's a mini version of the parachute strategy, where we're going to pretend that we're not together. We're going to pretend that I'm actually closest to Lisa and Jason's actually closest to the boys, Roddy and them. And it's like, no, we're not. We're each other's. And it just works. It works flawlessly. For her to do it and make it to the end is amazing. I think what I love about Danielle is she came back and proved herself. Because when you play multiple times, that's when you can really, really know. And I feel like that's why I regard Danielle higher than a lot of these, and Nicole. I regard Nicole and Diane in these top 5, because they came back and they did it again. Because when Danielle came back for All-Stars, she was initially targeted because she had went around spreading this idea that Big Brother 6 needs to go. She started that.
Yeah. And mind you, the 3 at the bottom went home because
she started it, and she was able to pivot it to where Alison gets the fall. And then next Diane gets the fall. She was one of the main people coming after Janelle, but Janelle felt like it was Alison. Then she felt like it was Nakomis. Then she felt like, but really it was Danielle the whole time. And it's because Danielle was able to create an alliance with James. That was her number 1. She was able to create this alliance with James, who was in the Big Brother 6 alliance. So she had someone in the alliance she was going against actually with her. She had a separate alliance with Will and Boogie that also helped her get to the end. It's like, the fact that Danielle is working with Will and Boogie, it's like, how's she getting in that? How did she get in that?
Well, with your mother.
She's that girl. She also was working with Marcellus, who didn't even like her, and Erica on the other side. And it's like, these people who I feel like she had every corner of the house basically again, because she had Erica, who wasn't in either of those alliances. She had Diane, who wasn't in either of those alliances. And then she had the alliance with Will and Boogie, and then she had James, who was with season 6. So it's like, she really was covered once again, and she did it again, and being in a worse position. So I feel like her making it to top 6 after an all-star season with these elite players, with Janelle winning every single competition, it really shows that she's able to strategically do it again and again and again. And I think she even thrived better in a modern season like 7. 7 was a little bit more.
And that's what's modern. So great to see too. Like, she played 3, one of the earlier versions, and then she came and she showed like, oh, I can play this version too. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm here with the big dogs as well. And like, that's what's so fun because that's how you know that she's a really good player. And it was so fun seeing her in BB3, because even though she eventually slightly ended up losing because of socialness and people seeing her in the DR while playing the game, a lot of people liked her. A lot of people were comfortable sharing information with her. Like you mentioned earlier, like she had Marcellus under her wing, and that type of bond is what made him not use the veto later on himself in the season, which ultimately helped her get to the end of the game. You know what I mean? Like, it was certain things like that. I mean, I remember there was a moment of her literally talking in sign language to Lisa. This is a woman who is always thinking about the game while maintaining a good social standing. Very similar to Tiffany in that way. I was just going to say,
there's so many similarities with like just the top 5 in general, because June was also using different languages to communicate. It's like, it's a higher level of thinking that I feel like all of these ladies up here have. Like, they're deciding to use different ways to speak. They're deciding to have social relationships and use those to help them get farther. And they kind of all don't give a fuck about people. Like, you know, it's a lot of similarities, and I really, really like that. But y'all, here's the list. Now, this is what I do want to say. I think we can get more of these.
Oh, one more thing about Danielle.
Yes.
First person to make it the final 3 unnominated.
Period. On the second season. Ate that up real quick. That eats. So, this is how I feel. This is how I feel.
Here, so, hey.
I feel like we could get a lot more of these in these upcoming seasons. Now that diversity has happened, now that there's inclusion in Big Brother, it's way more likely for women to be able to play how they should. Like I said, all of these women were in tandem with other women at some point. Danielle with Lisa, Tiffany with Hannah, Vanessa with the twins. Every single woman had women who helped back them up. And now that we have a more diverse cast, now they can have other types of diversity, other types of underrepresented groups who can help them win.
Who can help them.
Like Taylor just won with the help of that type of diversity, even though they were acting the way they was acting. But it still exists. It still helps. And that's the thing. It still helps even in the extreme example with Taylor. That's how you know diversity works, because even when they're struggling, they still get it.
And I think it's very telling to the type of winners on this list. I mean, if you look at it, it's mainly people from the older generation of Big Brother. And I feel like it's because there was a huge drop. I mean, in like these newer age seasons, I think a lot of women were honestly just, it was easier for them to get ostracized in the game by men linking up, or just them not getting the respect. You know what I mean? Because even Nicole, I mean, she's on this list, but like, when it comes to like respect factor, it was hard for her to get that. It really was.
She almost lost
the game that she was playing.
She won very closely, 5-4.
I'm hoping that we can get more, because I mean, when we're talking about like the building blocks of Big Brother, it's a lot of women. I mean, Janelle's not on this list, but like Janelle comes to mind, Nakomis, Diane. I mean, all of these women help forge what Big Brother is today. And it kind of feels like we don't have that fully anymore. That's why when you see Tiffany, because I would say, I mean, Nicole is someone I think a lot of people can skip over, or because they don't forget. A lot of people, it goes Vanessa, Tiffany. You know what I mean? And that's a huge gap. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. With this new era, we finally got Tiffany. You know, with this new era, we got Tiffany. Hannah is more strategic than a lot of the women we've seen in these past couple of seasons. She's thinking with her mind. And even the terrible people in 24.
I was going to say, Amira, girl.
Yes, the terrible people in 24. Paloma was literally running the house. I'm sorry, for a week, but she was running it. Amira came in, and Amira was doing very good strategically. And it's like, I think that we have the opportunity to actually get strategic women doing great things in the house, because even Nicole, when Nicole pushed her way into Pelot's pack and started running it, it's like
a lot of strong women players in BB24 and BB23 and 24. A lot of them.
24. And I feel like
because Claire, I'm thinking about Claire,
Alyssa was a bad bitch.
Alyssa,
I feel like these next couple seasons we can get more and more and more. So I'm excited. I think this is the perfect time to make this list. This is the perfect time to make this list, because we're probably going to get more. Be ready, babes.
I'm excited. I live for it. I mean, tell us do you think, anything should be changed? I mean, top 2 is not touched. I mean,
tell us your list. Don't tell us unless you want
to put Tiffany from the Danielle. I mean, that's the only change you can go with top 2.
Period.
Because they're top 2. They're top 2, baby.
And that's it. Yeah, just comment y'all top 10. Let us know what y'all think or whatever. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all follow us at T Reality Kingdom everywhere. Make sure y'all get into it or whatever, babes, because we getting into it all day. Mind you, every single Tuesday is going to be Big Brother Tuesday, so make sure y'all tune in every Tuesday, because we will be covering the season on those days, period, or whatever. And girl, where the fuck?
We're out.
No, that's right.